This video is about competition policy. So competition policy will generally be implemented on a national scale, but we might also have economic areas which might oversee competition policy for the whole block as well. So both UK on a national scale and then in terms of the economic area, we might have EU competition policy, are both going to have broadly pretty similar goals. And those are going to be encouraging competition between firms and therefore protecting the interests of consumers, legislating against any anti-competitive practices such as collusion, so that's when firms, particularly in oligopoly markets, work very closely together to try and force up prices or do other actions that can be quite anti-competitive against consumers. Or also monitoring levels of market concentration. So that's the market share held by the few largest firms in the industry and the potential impact of any monopoly power. So it's really about anything which reduces competition and is against the interests of the consumers. And anything like that will gain the interest of the Competition and Markets Authority, who are responsible for the enforcement of competition policy in the UK. And we've also got on an EU level, the policy goals are going to be very, very similar, but they might also look into cases of unfair competition between member states. So that could possibly be cases of government support for domestic businesses, enabling them to gain excessive market power. We also need to be able to evaluate the impact of competition policy. And the main thing on the benefits side of that is that it helps to increase competition in markets. That's what it's aiming to do. And the economic benefits of that should be really, really clear. Competition provides incentives which help to increase efficiency. So we've seen in long run equilibrium in our perfectly competitive markets that provides both allocative and productive efficiency. So competition can help provide outcomes which is going to maximise customer satisfaction, which is what we're looking at for allocative efficiency, while also minimising average costs, which is what we're looking at for productive efficiency. And one of the reasons why consumer satisfaction is going to be maximised is that high levels of competition drives down prices as firms are competing with each other to try and gain more customers. More firms in the market, which is the case in more competitive markets as well, can help to increase consumer choice between these firms, and it will also encourage them to improve the quality of their goods and services as they try and edge out their rivals in the market. And as ever, when we're evaluating, we need to consider the downside or any problems with competition policy. So firstly, anti-competitive practices like collusion can be really quite difficult to prove because it's not in itself illegal for, say, 4 different firms in an oligopoly market to all have their prices at the same relatively high level. They're free to set their prices how they choose in many ways. But we'd need evidence of communication to make these agreements in order to be able to legislate against them, and that evidence could be pretty difficult to come by. And then we've also got the benefits to markets which are more concentrated and have elements of market power. So bigger firms are more able to benefit from economies of scale, which means they can reduce their cost per unit, and it might even allow them to charge lower prices to customers. We've got the supernormal profits, which can be earned in more concentrated markets, which means that dynamic efficiency is more likely, which are these improvements to efficiency which come over time through innovation that we need those larger profits to be able to achieve. And so we need to be careful with competition policy that it's only used if the interests of the consumer are being harmed, not just in any market which becomes quite concentrated. And then finally, you've got the cost and therefore also the opportunity cost of implementing policies. We should always consider that. So could resources that are channeled into the Competition and Markets Authority be put to better use?